Namaskar. Welcome to a weekend editorial. Like I told you before, I am going to get professionals on weekend and I've been doing that a couple of weekends and here is another one. Today I'm going to talk about this book, Don't Forget 2004, and I'm going to talk to the author of this book. Now, this author of this book is also a friend of mine. We used to work together. There was she used to be a very senior professional in Lintas at one point in time. She worked for Leo Burnett, and Leo Burnett is where she handled the successful campaign of Congress. If you remember, Congress ka haath, Aam Adami Ke Saath. 2004 was a defining campaign for Congress, because 2004 nobody expected Congress to win. India Shining used to be the catch line. India Shining became a very famous campaign. India Shining was almost seen to be an invincible campaign. So that's when Congress, with very less money and but with some good professionals, came out with this fabulous campaign called Congress ka haath, Aam Adami Ke Saath. And I'm going to talk to Jayashree, and there are two reasons why I wanted to talk to Jayashree on this. A, of course, her book, and it's a very, very, very interesting book. Secondly, I think Congress ka haath, Aam Adami Ke Saath, I think was one of the most successful political campaign that I have seen in India. One of the most successful political campaigns. Now, mind you, there have been a lot of good campaigns, including India Shining. India Shining was a good campaign. My Heart Beats for India, good campaign. Ab Ki Bari, Atal Bihari was a good campaign. I don't deny that. But successful campaign that changed the market, changed the thought process. Successful that made a loser almost turn around and become the winner. So that's what I call success, and that's what this campaign is all about. It's a very, very interesting discussion. Let's get right into the show, talking about Don't Forget 2004. Here you are. Jayashree, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining, and it's so good to see you after so many years, Jayashree.
I know. It's so wonderful. We actually crossed paths in our previous agencies, and in fact, both, right?
So yes, Lintas and Leo Burnett.
Lintas and Leo Burnett.
Correct.
Fantastic to be sitting across, even though there's a screen that's dividing us, but it's good to be here. Thank you for calling.
You know, I was very proud that an advertising person wrote a book on politics. And it's a very, very interesting book, Jayashree. And I'm not telling you just to patronize you. It's actually a fabulous book. You know, it took me 5 hours, but I read the entire book. So it's amazing. It's an amazing book.
Thank you so much.
Just one question. Why this book now? Why 2022? 2004 ka story? Why are you talking about it in 2022?
No, that's a good question. And I'm sure it's going to cross everybody's mind. And actually, this thing got over, and I carried on working for some years, and then I transitioned into teaching MBA level courses, and I take this as a case study in my classes, and I would take it roughly around 3 times a year, because different courses, different institutes all over India. And this is one case study where, you know, there would be rapt attention, and there'd be a standing ovation at the end of it, and it would take up like everybody's imagination right up to 2021. In the middle of COVID, I was doing a Zoom call late night with this case study with my students, and it was around 9:30. We had gone over time by 45 minutes, and I apologized to them, and I said, I'm really sorry, you know, I've taken up so much of your time. And they said, ma'am, if you talked for another 1 hour, we would have sat. And, you know, I said it's so relevant to young people even today, because it's a true story. It's a David and Goliath story. And it is a story that affects not just politics, it's the world of branding. It brought in global branding for the first time. Brand agencies, you know, were pitted against each other. It's from a point of view of marketing, advertising, branding, India's history, politics. And the COVID was on, and I said, you know, why don't I do something? So it took me exactly, I think, 2 months to write this book out. It would have come out maybe earlier, but because there was Delta and everything last year, so the publishers had to shut down for a while and whatnot. But yeah, it finally has come out, and I thought I'd be doing a disservice to everybody around if this story remained tacit and just got buried, because it's such an important story to tell in the history of India. So better late than never, as they say. And another point I want to make is that a general elections is not a yearly thing or a daily thing like buying a soap or shopping for a TV. It's something that comes every 5 years. So we've just had 3 elections in the middle, right? General elections. So it's very relevant. If you look at the issues today, the same issues, Mehengai, unemployment, it's like the same stuff. So I think, yeah, I said better late than never. So that is what, and the initial feedback to the book is exactly like what you said. Most people are saying they're not able to put it down. So I'm glad I did it.
When you think about political advertising, the first thing that comes to mind is cash, money, black money, lot of restrictions from the government, lot of restrictions from the department, election commissions, so on and so forth. So how was this, how did you get them to pay you in check and all of that? How did that happen?
Yeah, I've written about it several times in the book. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a big narrative, and obviously narratives are based on truth. That there's cash transaction and that you do a lot of work, and at the end of the day, if there's a loss or something, you don't get paid. This is all rumor and hearsay. Nobody had told me personally or something like that, but everybody knew these kind of stories. So, being a multinational company, you can't deal in cash. And what made it very easy for us is that the media made a rule that every release order, whether you gave for television or for print, had to go along with the check. So the release order went with the check. So once the media mandated it, then you had to get the money by check. Having said that, the first time when I went and asked that, will you be able to pay us by check? And Mr. Salman Khushi said, well, we've just done the website and we paid by check. So put it up as your terms and conditions. And I don't think it will be a problem. And believe you me, it was not a problem, not once. Not once. In fact, there was a sum of 6 lakhs which was pending to us. And because some reconciling of some account had not happened, and we used to keep reminding. And I remember they said, "Aapko jo bola gaya hai, aapka paisa mil jayega." And sure enough, it came. So our experience on the financial side was very clean. Very clean. I never dealt with it. My finance head dealt with it. But he made friends with everyone there. The day he said he needed the money, it would be ready.
Jayashree, you wrote about your first pitch, the first pitch.
Yeah.
You wrote in detail. Sorry?
The first round?
The first round, yeah. The first round of your pitch. Sorry. I forgot terms. I forgot advertising terms, Jayashree. Forgive me. The first round of your pitch. Talk to us about it.
Oh my God. It was like, so we got this call saying that you come for the pitch, and the background is that, the elections were slated to happen in September, October of 2004. But because, the BJP NDA combined seemed to have been doing so well, and there was India shining going on from 3 to 4 months. There was a prime minister at the peak of his popularity, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He was advised that prepone the elections and there's going to be a landslide victory. And every magazine from an India Today to an Outlook were carrying it on their cover stories. So that was the general atmosphere in which the elections were preponed. And the Congress, on the other hand, had been out of power for 10 years. And while India Shining had started 3-4 months and was belting away, every day full page ads, long commercials, there was nothing here. Everything was quiet. So they called a pitch. That we got a call on the 6th of Jan, and they said, you're being invited to a pitch. And I said, okay, where's the brief? And they said, there's no brief. You have to You study the market and you study the problem and tell us how you're seeing this whole situation and what we can do. And they called it in 7 days. The 8 days we were given, 14th Jan we had to go. And that's it. That's the time we had. That was the letter we got. And from we had to build literally from scratch, from what do we do? So I put a team together. I had a very young team. Everybody was keen, enthusiastic, ready to put in the long hours and things like that. And this was a mix of client servicing, creative, media people. And the first thing we asked ourselves was, we can't be talking to everyone because it's very expensive and it's a very risky strategy to say, okay, I'll just put a general message out to everybody. So then nobody feels addressed. So in advertising, when you actually have to figure out your consumer and who are you talking to. But there's one very big difference over here. The difference is that in normal products, say if you're a drink of a cola, say Pepsi, okay, young people drink Pepsi. There will be a certain audience who will give you 80% of your revenue. It's the usual what we call the 80-20 rule, which is that you target that 20% and they give you 80% of your revenue. Not in politics, because one voter is one vote. So there's no difference between rich, poor, old, young, man, woman, same vote and one day. And that's the day you have to nudge them to go out to vote. So there was one very interesting data we found that actually at that time, the rough amount of people who went to vote was, say, 45-50% of all India went to vote, 50-55%. And urban India, while they were very good at chattering and discussions and drawing rooms and things like that, actually about 30-40% of urban India went to vote, whereas 60-70% of rural India went to vote. So that was a big pointer in terms of the consumer. Coming to India Shining. India Shining had been running for 4-5 months. It had been relentless in its pace, saturating the mind of the Indian consumer. You opened the TV, it was there. You looked at the paper, there were full page ads, happy people, and it said the forex reserves are really high and the stock market has seen amazing figures and we are very stable and we've had our test runs in Pokhran. And there was a very happy, shining kind of picture that was put out over there. So having figured out that this part, that rural India goes more to vote, we asked ourselves one basic question. When we looked into reams and reams of secondary data, which we were studying, we found the employment exchanges were groaning under a lot of people registered there. We found there were hardly anything being done for women, though they made up 48.5% of the population. But nobody is directly talking to these people, to the woman audience. There were farmers, with the usual issues of loan rates being high, farmer suicide. So there was a whole bunch of people who were looking like a very unserved market. Who is the served market? Who is India Shining serving? And our hypothesis was that it's probably urban India, the chattering classes in urban India. Whereas, is it really shining for all these people? So the first thing we did once we figured this hypothesis out is that we said, let's send teams out. Because sitting in a air-conditioned office, conference room somewhere and having these discussions and feeling that you're getting to a good part of the strategy is not good enough till you hear it from the horse's mouth. I was very clear on this. And we had very limited time. On day 8, we were supposed to be in front of them. So we sent teams out, 2 executives and a videographer, because I wanted the interviews on tape. I wanted to see the faces. Otherwise, people can think you've cooked up the data. So we went, I sent teams to Bangalore, Maharashtra, Alwar, Meerut, parts of Delhi, I don't know, all over Punjab. And they came back on day 3, day 4 with this data, and we were watching the raw footage through the night. And there were just 3 questions on that questionnaire. Have you heard of India Shining? In Hindi, it was Bharat Uday. Bharat Uday ke baare mein aapko pata hai? How much has your life changed in the last 5 years? If so, how? And person upon person, man, woman, young person, this research was carried out in semi-urban and rural parts, okay? Everybody said, Bharat Uday? Nahi, nahi, nahi. आपका लाइफ कैसा कैसा रहा इन द लास्ट 5 years? हाँ, बदल गया है. कैसा हुआ है? बेकार हो गया है. Okay, so wow, so here's a huge regional base of consumers down the line who are unaffected by all this.
Jayashree, are you saying that India Shining campaign didn't percolate to the rural
No,
India? Is that what
no.
you're saying?
Well, I'm sure a lot of ads ran, but it did not get to the heart. You know, in advertising, we have three things. There's the heart, mind, and the muscle, which is the mind, heart, and the action. So we can make very rational or emotional messages, but if it's not tugging at my heart, because I feel alienated, I don't understand what is the stock market or what are the forex reserves. I'm just trying to get my body and soul together. So then we came out with the strategy that let's talk to the striver. Bus mein jo aadmi latakta hai. And this was a input from my boss when he heard the whole strategy. This is what he said: write your campaign to this person, the striver, the guy in the bus who's keeping his body and soul together, who's not seeing any joy. So that is how we set the target audience. The media strategy was completely regional. There was hardly any English advertising in this campaign. And there were 4 target groups that we selected: the farmer, women, which is 48% of the population, nothing happening for them, unemployed youth, and petty investors, middle class petty investors. We said, let's talk to these people. And we therefore came up with the counter to India Shining, which was India Shining, lekin Aam Admi ko kya mila?
Jayashree, I've got 2 questions for you, and I'm going to ask you 2 questions simultaneously because I'm sure you're going to answer me that way. Jayashree, tell me, what was the insight that you got about Congress when you went out for that research? What did people think about Congress in 2004 when you went out for the research? And I'll tell you why I'm asking you this question. That's my question number 2. My question number 2 is, situation seems to be the same in 2022. Okay, what happened in 2010? Why 2004? Because yes, same Congress was out of power for last 10 years. Here also it will be for 10 years in 2024. Misogyny is a big problem currently. Unemployment is still a big problem currently. So the situation 2022 is very similar to situation 2024. So how do you see this?
So your first question was, what did the people say about Congress?
Yes.
I must be honest and tell you, we didn't ask them, what do you think of the BJP? What do you think of the Congress? They wanted a change. That is why in politics, it's very, this word anti-incumbency. A lot of parties go and they hit out, because they want to get that anti-incumbency negative kind of thing against the government in power. Because if you're in power, you're incumbent. And then people want to go and say that, they didn't keep up the promises. But one thing our entire campaign did was, it wasn't just anti-incumbency. This message, Aam Adami Ko Kya Mila, is what we started with in March. And it ran for about 3 weeks. And we stopped it. Because you cannot win by just saying, they haven't done their job, The consumer is going to say, okay, I've heard you. What are you going to do if you come to power? So we were very clear that the bulk of the campaign would be what we call the vision campaign. And in between, there was a bridge campaign, which was the achievements campaign, because this is a very important point. The first time voter at 18 years was 9 years old when the Congress was in power, 10 years back. To him, the reforms issue is cloudy. Okay, they think this is the government. I don't know that these guys, did the green revolution, the white revolution, the computer revolution, and, brought in all the PSUs. And also there was a campaign which literally put the visiting card back in front of the voter saying, listen, we are the guys who did all this. And then there was a vision campaign that if you bring us back to power, these are our 6 bases of governance, and this is what we promise you. So it was a three-legged campaign. It wasn't just anti-incumbency. But you're right. But you're right. I mean, the issues, whether it is the Congress or the BJP or whether it is the SP or whoever is in power, these are the 4 or 5 basic issues that keep coming back, which is Mengai is a big issue. What are you doing for women is a big issue. Women are taken to rallies, women are put on posters, but how many of them are getting tickets? How many of them are leading? So, but that's almost 50% of the population, that's not being addressed. So, a lot of the issues are the same.
Jayashree, you know what? Your campaign never spoke about, you're so correct. I would like to elaborate this to my viewers. The campaign never spoke about Bharatiya Janata Party. The campaign never spoke about India Shining. The campaign just said, Aam Adami Ko Kya Mila? Now, India Shining was not something that you spoke about. So that was fabulous. Yes, you're correct. And secondly, I think your campaign, and I see, and the audience must be seeing it in the screen, a lot of your campaign had women on the campaign. The so-called silent voters, as they're called now, your campaign had a lot of women. So that was also a change, especially when you're talking about rural India, because your campaign was focused in rural India. Jayashree,
Right.
tell me, another question that I then would want
Can I just say something before I forget?
No, please.
You're right when you say that we did not take names and go after people. That was a very, very key part of our strategy, that our campaign will remain clean, honest, unart directed, which means real pictures, real people. So you don't see models in our campaign. These are real people. We shot in villages. We shot the real consumer, the ones who we said that, the urban, the semi-urban and rural. So these were real people. Our creative people made a campaign which was unart directed. And actually, when the results took place in May, the Asian Wall Street Journal was the first to write that it was the cinema verite style of advertising of the Congress party that resonated with the consumer. And cinema verite is a type of filmmaking which is, bold, stark. And our campaign was black and white, and we had no money, so it was quarter-page ads and, just black and white. But it cut through because it looked different. There was a bit of sneers and all that from urban India, and especially people in advertising. Are you seeing what the Congress has done? Some horrible black and white ads. I said, it's fine. We are not talking to you. It's not for you. It is talking. It's made for the people who it's going to talk to.
Jayashree, one of the things that happened just before 2000, that is 10 years back, during P.V. Narasimha Rao's prime ministership, and when Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, was the economic reforms. Now, isn't it surprising that the campaign that you made, didn't carry a P.V. Narasimha Rao picture, didn't carry even a Manmohan Singh picture. Pictures that you carried were of Sonia Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. I can understand Sonia Gandhi because Sonia Gandhi was the president of Congress party at that point in time. But it was Sonia Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. Why? Why was P.V. Narasimha Rao's photo not carried?
No, he was there. He was there.
Achha.
I can send it to you. It's there in the book also. He was there. Lal Bahadur Shastri was there.
Yeah, this is the one that you're talking about. This picture, wherein you have P.V. Narasimha Rao, Indira Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Lal Bahadur Shastri, and Rajiv Gandhi. That's one.
Yeah.
But somewhere down the line, why wasn't the economic reforms spoken about, Jayashree? Is there a reason why that was avoided?
It was spoken about in that mid campaign, the bridge campaign, the achievements campaign. But we didn't put anyone's face there. There was no Rajiv Gandhi's face. There was no Nehru's face, Indira Gandhi's face. Nobody. It was just the party, and we have brought these reforms to you. Yes, in a couple of posters, there was Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi, and that was about talking about the sacrifice of their life. There was one poster of theirs.
I was talking about your campaign to a very senior Bharatiya Janata Party leader and a thinker and all of that. Okay, and I asked him, and he was very close to L.K. Advani, and I asked him, I said, listen, what was the reaction when Aam Adami Ko Kya Mera campaign came in, and what was the reaction in the Bharatiya Janata Party camp? And he told me, he said, the only mistake we did was India Shining campaign was too early in the day. It was too early before the vote. So technically speaking, by the time the voting happened or by the time the voting date approached, this campaign was stale. And Aam Adami Ko Kya Mila was a fresh campaign, did the magic. Do you agree to that?
I think there is a lot of truth in that. There is something about peaking too early. And it so happened that, this pitch got called in Jan and we started in early March. And the first election was 5-phase election. It started on 20th April. So it was boom. It was, that 6-week period. And even though the budget was limited, but with smaller sizes and black and white, we managed to have a good amount of media pressure exactly at the right time. And the consumer had been seeing India Shining for about 6 months, though they did not let down the pace. The pace was heightened even then. But yeah, maybe they were, it had got a bit stale and there was a opposite point coming. And an opposite point comes, the consumer says, okay, I never looked at it like that, So yeah, there is something about peaking too early.
Let me get into some spicy questions, Jayashree. Let me get into some spicy questions. Tell me, who was your client? Was the client only the Gandhis and would they take the decision?
No. There was a core team, okay, that we dealt with, who were our daily contacts. And they were, at the first line, it was Salman Khurshid and Jairam Ramesh. And there was Ahmed Patel, Ambika Soni and Voraji, Motilal Vora, who sat hugely into all the media negotiations. The media part was another ball game totally. I mean, they would have a full day meeting with each newspaper into, how many ads we're giving, how they're going to be negotiating, what is the position. There's a lot of work that goes behind. Also, Voraji was really looking after the media and the finances. And it was this team that were our, day-to-day contacts. It was this team.
So the final, the chairman, the final, was it Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi, the final decision makers?
Sonia Gandhi.
So, and Rahul and Priyanka did not interfere at all?
No, they didn't interfere. They were, I think, younger than what they are today. So I'm not sure if how much involved they were in the previous campaigns, but they did come in at a point. We met them a few times. They did have a point of view on things, and it was good to work with them. It was really good.
No, fair enough. But did their point of view make a difference? Did the campaign change according to their point of view?
Well, the campaign barely changed from the pitch presentation. It was bought in toto, but it got iterated a bit, the copy, the line. But yeah, we got a lot of good inputs from Priyanka on the radio campaign. For example, that is something that she briefed us on, and we went back and presented it to her. And Rahul was a lot into the detailing on the numbers. Where did you all do the research? What kind of sampling did you do? Did you do random sampling, quota sampling? Why this, sample size? Why not this? He gets into details.
So when you say that Congress is a dynasty party, do you think you felt as if you're presenting to an Ambani? Because, normally when you present to an Ambani, when Dhirubhai was alive, it used to be Dhirubhai and then Mukesh and Anil presiding on the campaign. Was it similar to presenting to a family?
Not at all. Like I told you, these were our key contacts at 99 South Avenue, the war room. And that's where all the meetings used to take place. Mrs. Gandhi was very involved in seeing the campaign for herself. She called us once and, went through it in detail herself without anyone else there. She bought into it herself. Until the first phase of the campaign, she was very involved. After that, she was on rallies and things like that. So it would go there, it would come back approved, or there may have been a comment, change the space or change this line, change that hut, something like that. But it was rolling like a very fast, speedy juggernaut. So there were not these big meetings with, the family sitting like this and we sitting opposite. No, not at all.
Two more questions. First is, do you think if this campaign is relaunched, do you think it will do the same good to Congress, because problems are the same, unemployment and misogyny, problems the same.
Oh, wow. I haven't thought about it like that, but you're right. The muddas are pretty much same, and some more have got added. So there could be a story there.
Okay, Jayashree, my last question to you. Okay, Jayashree, you worked on a successful campaign, and I constantly maintain this is because I remember a lot of people. I used to work in the same agency as you did during the same time, and I used to remember a lot of people telling me that यार ये 2004 के लिए नहीं उन लोग कर रहे हैं, they are doing it for 2009 so that Congress becomes relevant in 2009. 2004 तो खैर it is going back to Bharatiya Janata Party. This was what a general talk was. Would you agree to me?
Absolutely. In fact, before the counting day, we were like, we hope they get more than 112 seats.
And
what they got.
And Jayashree, I have colleagues of mine in the media, in the news industry, who are actually doing the show, and the Congress leaders sitting in the studio were surprised with the numbers. Some of them couldn't even believe that they got those numbers. So that's what. So you basically created history. After 2014, I think strategy in politics became numbers. They started to become data. They started to become Hindu, Muslim, higher caste, lower caste, middle class, the Thakurs, others. Okay, strategists started calculating numbers and caste rather than consumer insight, like we spoke about. Okay, those became so-called Chanakyas, people who spoke numbers. Okay, Jayashree, interestingly, I spoke to a very senior advertising colleague of ours. We both know him, but let's not talk about, let's not take names. I spoke to a very senior advertising colleague and I asked him, I said, listen, have strategy changed into numbers nowadays? Consumer insight तो कोई बात नहीं करता. Numbers is what we talk about. And he said, नहीं यार, strategy के लिए numbers बहुत जरूरी है. Number crunching is very necessary for strategy. Jayashree, I want to ask you a question. Throughout your campaign and your successful campaign, what did you focus on? Did you focus on numbers, caste, creed, religion, or did you focus on pure consumer insight and what the consumers wanted from a political party? What did you focus on?
Of course, a little bit of numbers to figure out the urban-rural divide. How many consumers can we catch in this net of going, rural and things like that? But it wasn't the overarching discussion. Once we figured, see, in a political campaign or any campaign, you need to define your target audience and your consumer. And how are you going to talk to them? If it is not relevant, you can pump in a lot of money, you can look at a lot of data, but the consumer facing work to those datas, okay, that you are getting is the advertising. And if it's not going to tug at the mind or the heart, and therefore on the day of the voting, get them to get their themselves out and go to the booth, you're done for. So, today I think the flavor of politics is actually, I think, India's got a third religion now. It's earlier it is cricket and Bollywood. I think the third is politics now. Politics is the new entertainment. There's an antagonist, there's a protagonist, there are issues, there's mystery, then there's a result day. It's so exciting, it's throbbing with excitement. And the one big difference that has come now is the mobile phone. Okay, so I was just looking at some data just before I was going to come and talk to you. Our penetration of the mobile phone in India is around 800, 900 million. There's a phone almost in every hand. Smartphones are at about 54%. People during COVID our screen time used to be around 4 or 5 hours. Now our average screen time of an Indian is around 6.5 to 7 hours a day. This is a very potent tool in the hand of political parties. And with WhatsApp there, so you can come personally at the person. Today, media is so proliferated. How do you get the consumer? A TV ad laga do and you get the consumer, or you go to the paper. Today, where are you going to find this consumer? So I think YouTube is a great channel because firstly, it's the number 2 social media platform in the world. talk to him on YouTube. I think today the party that is going to succeed is to get absolutely what you said, the right consumer insight. And I haven't seen anything brilliant over the last 20 years, honestly.
Correct.
And how are you going to reach? You have to go down to that last street, that last mohalla, have an amazing WhatsApp campaign, do live streaming on Facebook. Not so much Instagram and Twitter, they are smaller and they're more urban. But if you want that big reach, you have to. Today, the whole game is very exciting. It's changed, and it's that I think the weapon is your phone. And the next big thing that you need is a good slogan. That a slogan, in any other brand advertising can be, okay, nahi chala. But in political advertising, if you have an amazing slogan like India Shining was or Aam Adami Ko Kya Mila, India Shining to the people who were excited with it. But for example, Obama's Yes We Can, or Reagan's Let's Make America Great Again, or Margaret Thatcher's Labour Isn't Working, or Ab Ki Bari Atal Bihari. And this Aam Adami Ko Kya Mila got such currency, it became a local lingo. Once it gets into your local conversation, that's when it really succeeds. So I think today politics is the new entertainment and a lot can be done. And I just wish people would spend time in finding the right insight, taking that one idea and then pushing it out strongly. Instead of ye bhi bol diya, wo bhi bol diya, ye bhi bol diya, and it's a very risky strategy. Nobody thinks it's for me. It must be for him or for her.
Jayashree, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. And this is your book, Don't Forget 2004. I guess I would urge the viewers to pick up this book. Where is it available, Jayashree? Is it available in all stores?
So now I'm going to plug. Okay, here's my book. Don't forget 2004 and Advertising Secrets of an Impossible Election Victory. It's available on Amazon and Flipkart and some leading bookstores in Delhi, and it's going to go into stores all over India, but very easily available on Amazon and Flipkart.
So pick your copy up. That's what I would tell my viewers. And thank you so much, Jayashree. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful chatting with you and catching up after all these years.
Likewise.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. I just wanted to give you a concluding statement. Successful campaigns, successful marketing strategies cannot be formed by sheer numbers. Sheer vote banks, creation of vote banks, caste vote banks, communal vote banks, creation of vote banks and manipulating those numbers cannot give you a successful campaign. Consumer behavioral change cannot be brought about by sheer manipulation of data. It cannot happen. Data, planning, idea can be derived out of data, but data cannot be the plan. It cannot be. Data cannot be the big idea. Data cannot be your strategy. Strategies are derived out of data. What we have seen from 2014 with all these Chanakyas that have popped up is these data numbers. Creation of caste, Kurmi votes, scheduled caste votes, OBC votes, Thakur votes, Brahman votes, Hindu votes, Muslim votes. That's all we have seen. And I'm not talking about just Bharatiya Janata Party. Even the so-called strategist that evolved after 2014, who later on became, who later on was crowned as Chanakya and all of that, focused on numbers. The entire game was dividing people and ensuring that you get votes from them. Create a vote bank. Creation of vote bank is a short-term strategy. It can never be a large strategy. It can never be the big idea. And that's what I think Congress Ka Haath, Aam Adami Ke Saath proved. This is a beautiful book. Genuinely read it. It's a fabulous strategy. It's a fabulous advertising campaign. And also proves my point that end of the day, numbers can't get you a consumer change. Big idea can. Till I see you next time. Namaskar.